Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters for Anfield Index. It all feels a bit like after the Lord Mayor's show, doesn't it? Liverpool battled valiantly in this second leg, but they do go out on penalties to PSG. So just a small matter of potential double to focus on going forward. But we have got to look back to last night, and there's a fair few things to talk about, both on and off the field even. And here to join me as ever is the renowned and the respected David Lynch. I mean, in simple terms, David, when you try and rationalise this, over the two legs, did the better team go through?
Yeah, I just don't think you can doubt that. I thought last night was a really entertaining, very even game, whereby either side could have gone through on the night because obviously Liverpool somehow had that lead from the first leg. But if you take the two legs as a whole, the dominance PSG showed in that first one, and the fact they showed up at Anfield and they showed, for want of a better phrase, balls to come to Anfield and play in the way that they did. So, they made a real even game out of it. Maybe Liverpool marginally edged it, but I just thought they were incredibly impressive across both legs as a whole. And, it didn't cost Liverpool anything that they were poor in the first leg, but, you just feel in terms of fairness, it's hardly a smash and grab on their part, is it, to have gone through. And I thought a good reminder really of Liverpool, of the level they're kind of aspiring to now that they're back in the Champions League this season and hopefully will be going forward. And this is kind of early days, isn't it, under Arne Slot? So I don't think it could be too kind of heartbroken. It's not, I think I look back really, one of the more disappointing Champions League exits, I think, was the one in 2020, just because I think at that point Liverpool were the best team in Europe and they should have gone on and shown it, but obviously got mistakes cost them against Atletico Madrid in the end. But this time around, you knew, there are clear little areas of strengthening in this squad. So I don't think it's too heartbreaking. And for me, would not be surprised at all if PSG went on and went on to win the competition this year. Because I mean, we've seen the other side who were stated as contenders in Real Madrid. We've seen them at Anfield. I don't think they were anywhere near that level. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if they won the whole thing.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprising at all. And the comments are flying in. Red Armchair supporter there saying we were as good as them for most of the game, which is, I think, a fair assessment. And we'll have a little breakdown of that at the same time. I think, Arne Slot, you could tell there was a bit of pain in his face during the post-match interviews, and understandably, like the rest of us. But just while we break down the game into almost segments, let's just have a little listen to what Arne Slot said after the game.
Looked at the scoreboard and we were 1-0 down. Over 90 minutes, I don't think we deserve to lose this game of football today. Over 180 minutes, maybe it was deserved that we went to overtime. In overtime, I thought Paris Saint-Germain was a bit better than us, so in this half hour. And then it comes down to penalties, and they scored 4, we 2, and we lost.
Always matter of fact, as he normally is, Arne Slot. But he is right in essence of different from the first leg. We did have good periods, even small periods of domination, it's fair to say, in the 90 minutes, didn't we?
Yeah, really. I mean, obviously, I thought the first half was very kind of end-to-end of a basketball game. But then I thought the second half of the game in particular, I thought Liverpool were absolutely fantastic. They limited PSG to barely anything and kept creating chances, obviously hit the post when that marginal offside goes against them. But they were the dominant force in the second half in particular, which is why you feel over the course of the 90 minutes that Liverpool were just edging it as kind of the better side, really. Obviously, as the manager says, and I agree with him, I thought extra time, we saw the benefits for PSG of having rested so many players at the weekend as they were able to do. Liverpool didn't have that luxury, and so that started to tell towards the end of that. But the 90 minutes, as I say, it wouldn't have felt like a travesty if Liverpool had nicked a 1-1 draw at full time and obviously gone through then on 2-1 on aggregate in the end. That wouldn't have felt like they'd absolutely nicked it, because I thought they were very, very good for large parts of this game. So, a lot of positives in there as well. And I'm talking about how good PSG are and that Liverpool, are aspiring to that level. But on another day, could quite easily knock them out. For starters, if they'd have just popped the penalties in, that can happen and you can win them. But also just on the basis of the performance on the night, Like I said, a draw would have been fine if Liverpool had nicked the game itself, and obviously gone through on aggregate again would have been fine. So it's fine margins as much as anything else. And I thought a lot of positives in the performance, and Liverpool far better in terms of showing their actual level versus what they showed in the first leg.
He did allude to sort of extra time, and I don't know if you felt the same, but almost in extra time, it felt like the longer it went on and the more subs that came on. Normally, we were always talking about Arne Slot subs making huge positive impacts. It just seemed the longer extra time went on, we almost just, I won't say stopped playing, but it did feel like we were hanging on in that half an hour.
Yeah, I think the first time possibly all season, actually, that Arne Slot's subs made the team worse, to be honest. I didn't think Curtis Jones played well when he came on. I thought Darwin Núñez was poor. Gakpo didn't look fit at all to me. So, I thought Kwanzaa did quite well, actually, in difficult circumstances. But obviously, it still makes you slightly worse as a team because Trent is so important in terms of progressing the ball. So, I don't think the subs kind of worked. And as I said, I thought the fitness element came into it then. The PSG had basically had that whole rest on the weekend and looked a lot fresher as the game went on. And their subs were very strong and kept their level up as well. So that was important. So, that was kind of a little bit of a problem for Liverpool, is that towards the end of the game, they kind of let their foot off the gas. And, it's supposed to be a benefit, isn't it, having an extra half an hour in your home ground, and yet Liverpool looked the likelier to concede, really, and we're kind of hanging on for penalties in the end.
Yeah, and listen, people, the comments are absolutely flying in. I have got no chance of keeping up with these, so I'll try and just highlight a few. Red for Life, they're saying maybe to not be able to score at Anfield over 120 minutes is a bit concerning. Is it fair to say, though, David, on that point, small margins as in there's a block from Mo Salah, there's ones especially early doors that was so close. Jarell Quansah's almost feels like a lick of paint on the post away from going in as well.
Yeah, and you've got to say it is fine margins. I don't think you can say that's a massive concern because Liverpool scored an awful lot of goals. I mean, we will go on, I imagine, to kind of talk about the attack and what it kind of said about that. But it's, PSG, for example, they only score one goal in this tie, and it comes about through a mistake. And you think about all the attacking quality and the moments they had. Should they be concerned going forward? I'm not sure. So it's just football sometimes as well. We can't kind of explain away every aspect of every game. Sometimes ball goes in, sometimes ball doesn't go in. It's kind of it is a little bit like that, and sometimes you got to kind of accept that, really. But it's I thought Liverpool did enough to create the chances there. And I mean, those first couple of chances, Salah early doors, the block on the line's unbelievable. I thought Nuno Mendes, fantastic over two legs, by the way. And then he passes one wide of the post. One of those goes in. I think, no matter how mentally strong or how good PSG are, that would have seriously damaged them if Liverpool had gone 2-0 up on aggregate. So, unfortunately, it didn't go in. And most of the time for Mo Salah this season, they have been going in. It's just that, like I say, that's football.
Yeah, it just come down to those moments. And there are positives from last night. I know it's not easy to see them, people, but I do want to talk through a few individual performances. Do want to just listen to the great man between the sticks, because Alisson had a great game, but just listening to what he said about his counterpart, I think is worth noting here.
Very little to split the two teams. You were wonderful in the first leg. He was wonderful tonight to keep Liverpool at bay. Donnarumma.
Yeah, he did really well. He's a great guy, a nice lad, really humble. I know him from a long time ago playing against him. And this is football. Anything can happen. This is Champions League. The best teams in the world are playing, and we just have to keep on going for the rest of the season.
And that's the key now.
I mean, Donnarumma, we always knew when it went to penalties, just the sheer size of him, that was going to be a task. But I think it's fair to say almost no doubt in the first leg, but even in the second leg, this one, Alisson makes some brilliant saves and a real shout for man of the match for us again.
Yeah, he also quite clearly likes Madri, judging by his outfit and look he was going for yesterday. But he was, I thought you saw, Donnarumma for me outside of the penalties. Really, obviously he's fantastic there. He wins the tie for PSG, but I thought he was generally terrible across the two legs. I mean, he lets in the one shot on target he faces in the first leg, and it was a bomb scare all night at Anfield, really. It looked so uncomfortable with the ball at his feet. A couple of decent saves in there as well, to be fair to him, but I thought generally he kind of was more of a negative than a positive for PSG right up until the penalties, really. And I think you saw, when you see a goalkeeper who's as highly rated as that playing like that, it just shows you again, I think, how good Alisson is and how important he is for Liverpool. And, we talked about kind of uncertainty over his future going forward. But, I mean, at least one more season I'd like to see him, because he's right there at the top level still, isn't he? And kind of proved it in this tie. And one player you can say absolutely unlucky to not be progressing to the next round, because he 100% did his job.
Yeah, team of the tournament should be shooting whatever happens going forward. And I mean, we're talking about specific players here, and he's on the screen there, Mo Salah. I don't know if this is harsh, but it's just felt a little bit recently, maybe, and in this competition. I don't know whether he's lacking support. That's too harsh. But just to talk about his counterparts, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I was messaging you during the game. I was surprised he started, and I thought Diogo Jota had a bit of a stinker again.
Yeah, he just looked the wrong pick, didn't he? I mean, Jota himself acknowledged in the pre-match press conference that his level just hasn't been there this season. Outside of the injury, hasn't played well generally anyway. And I think he's never been absolutely perfect in terms of what he brings in build-up, but what he has been is an absolutely ruthless finisher. But doesn't even seem to be getting the chances at the moment. So he's a net negative really for the team when he's on the pitch. And again, as was the case in the first leg, I just thought PSG quicker, stronger at the back than him, smarter, and just ate him up, really. I think he wins 1 out of 9 ground duels. That sums it up, really. Any 50-50, he was coming off second best and, didn't really get the chances to shoot or anything like that. So he was just contributing very, very little. And, it was a strange pick, I suppose, because it was just maybe Slot thought we're going to have more of the ball, more of the chances in this game, and therefore if I have a chance where it's one-on-one, I want Jota on the end of it. But it didn't kind of play out like that, really. He wasn't the one on the end of the chances, and he just wasn't doing very much, really. And it's been a really tough season for him. I wonder. You'd like to think it's just that injury, and maybe he can come back and maybe find a bit of strength before the end of this season, come back next season and be better. But it just hasn't worked for him. And I thought he looked very short of the kind of elite level last night.
And I suppose even for the others, I mean, I think you've got to separate the penalty miss aside, but I think Núñez gave something a bit more, but as the game went on, like we said, with extra time, it was fading. But did it sum it up last night? Do you remember that ball over the top where Núñez and Diaz both went for it and then both stopped? And it did that kind of sum up the lack of synergy between Salah and anyone else in that front line?
Yeah, I thought with Núñez in that situation, to be fair to him, I think he recognises that he's probably offside in that moment. So he's trying to leave it to Diaz, but obviously Diaz is not alive to that fact, and they both leave it in the end. So, I didn't think Núñez was much better than Jota when he came on. He maybe added a little bit more energy to the press because he's a bit quicker over the ground, and that helps, and maybe put a bit of doubt in their minds because he'd done what he'd done in the first leg. But I just think it's so telling, isn't it, that you see what he does in the first leg. He scores a goal against Southampton, and yet the manager still does not trust him to start. He doesn't think he is, because he knows, and this is a fair criticism if this is in the manager's mind, is that, Núñez can be good, but then he can also be terrible. And, that inconsistency has been the theme of his Liverpool career. So the fact he doesn't trust him in this one because he's hit a little purple patch it's just not really a surprise, is it, really? And, I just think it just shows, doesn't it, between Jota and Núñez, how poor they were over the two legs, generally speaking. I just think it's an area Liverpool have to strengthen this summer for me, really. It's good enough what they've got in forward areas to win the Premier League, but when you get to this real top elite level, they both just got eaten alive, really. And so Liverpool need better in that area if they're going to be any better next season, and these games kind of spelled that out.
Yeah, there's a fair bit in the column around, or the comments around Jota and what might be needed as well, which we'll come on to. But do want to talk a few positives as well, because we did say that's where we start. two in the middle especially, I thought Szoboszlai and McAllister had really good games, and it was such a notable difference when those two went off. Do you think they stood out last night?
Yeah, totally agree. I think it's a big part of the reason that Liverpool had a bit more control in midfield than they did in the first. Like, these two were just absolutely outstanding, really. I mean, I love McAllister to bits, love watching him. I just think I think he's the integral midfielder of the three, really. Yeah. He's just absolutely vital because he's so good in everything that he does, and he's just so intelligent. And yeah, I thought he was brilliant, winning duels. Keeping the ball. I think he creates more chances than anybody else in the match. So 5 chances. So shows you how good he is. And Liverpool were much worse when he went off. And then Szoboszlai again, he just works and works and works, doesn't he? Picked up some nice pockets. Yeah. He looked really frustrated when he went off. But again, I just get why the manager's doing it, because there's a cup final at the weekend. You can't, and you don't want to run him into the ground so that he gets an injury, because everyone will be throwing their arms up then and asking questions. So that's clearly kind of sports science motivated decision rather than a selection one. But it did make Liverpool a little bit worse, unfortunately. And again, maybe that just speaks to, again, this is one area where, you know, Liverpool can kind of add something. And you know, in central midfield, if you can add one more midfielder who is just of that level and the manager really trusts, then that would be that would be a real positive.
It's funny, isn't it? It's going back to the summer. I know it's a sliding doors moment, so it never happened. But it was quite interesting a few tweets I saw, which makes you think if Zubimendi had got over the line, maybe that midfield controller would have been so valuable last night at that in times. But hey-ho, it is what it is that way.
Yeah, just to come in on that, I just think it's interesting, though, because for me, I kind of look at it and I'm not sure kind of someone of Zubimendi's profile now is exactly what kind of Liverpool are crying out for. For me, you know, having him in the squad yesterday, I felt like Liverpool could have done with someone who can get around a little bit more. I mean, McAllister, for all his strengths and his brilliance, he's not the quickest off the mark, is he? So, you know, and you don't really want to be putting too many of those in your squad if possible. I don't know if someone who can cover a little bit more ground would be better. But it's an interesting one to see what they go for if you know, this summer, because I think they will probably add in central midfield, but it's going to kind of be, it'll be interesting, won't it, to see if they go for something similar to a Zubimendi, or they're looking for a completely different profile now.
Yeah, if the nerds, the geeks, whatever they call them with the laptops, can work out how to clone Alexis McAllister, I think that would be the best thing we could do this summer, but we'll see what happens there. And this one, I mean, I'm hoping, we all have to hope and pray, Trent and Ibu, that I think if I've heard it right this morning, Arne Slot last night mentioned that not expecting Trent to play for Sunday. And it looks like it could be quite a bad one from the replays. But Ibu, I thought he was holding his groin, but suggestions that Arne Slot says, I have to ask, so he didn't confirm it 100%, but thinks it's just tiredness. That's got to be the hope. We can just get one of them on the field for Sunday, isn't it?
Yeah, he did look a little bit like kind of just cramped, Canate. He didn't look too downbeat when he went off. So hopefully he'll be involved, and that'll be really important because he's been so good this season. And Trent, yeah, I just think you look at the kind of injury there, the way he's turned his ankle, there's just absolutely no chance we see him on Sunday. I mean, the real question is, with his contract expiring, how many more games are left? 10 games left, is it, this season?
Yeah.
You know, how many more of those will he be available for? It's an interesting one, but he's that's a real blow. And again, I think that really hurt Liverpool when he went off. I thought Quanta did a fine job when he came on, but he's not Trent in terms of progressing the ball. Albeit he's probably a little bit better in the air. He was unlucky with a couple of those chances, but that there's just no denying that's a blow. But I still think Liverpool have got enough to go into this final and go and win it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will talk about the final, no two ways about it. I suppose there's a few things naturally off the field that we always talk about, because we talk about transfers a little bit on contracts, which I didn't think we'd be talking about as well. So the big link that's come out the last few days, I know you'll have seen it, David, as well. Nico Schlotterbeck, I think it's pronounced, the Dortmund and Germany centre-half, left-footed, well-known around Europe. That Liverpool have got a strong interest in this player, are the suggestions. Heard anything on the player at all, or links with us?
No, not particularly. If I'm honest, I've not heard any truth in those links. What I will say as well is that I feel like they're. I don't want to kind of get into calling anyone out specifically, but there are a couple of journalists that I think have currently linked Liverpool to possibly every single player who is plying their trade in Germany at the moment. And I just wish people would take that with a pinch of salt. We probably shouldn't even bother discussing things that they've linked, because honestly, Liverpool, according to them, are in for everyone at the moment. And Liverpool do have interest and do watch a wide range of players, but honestly, the frequency with which these links come out, it just should lose all credibility to me. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And maybe at one point they will actually be right, and maybe they'll kind of get lucky and one of these links will be right. But it's honestly ludicrous, the amount of players that are getting linked at the moment. And if you just think that maybe even 5% of those will maybe be true, then we'll get a little bit closer to the reality of what Liverpool are looking at for the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, to be fair, there were suggestions in some of the articles, let's put it that way, that it might link to Virgil van Dijk. So you almost hope that element has no truth completely. But that was where I wanted to go, because I know you all have seen it. There's the various photos, the videos of Virgil van Dijk talking to PSG's bigwigs, isn't it? Nasser El Khalifi, their president, Luis Campos, their director of football there. And even his comments last night around whoever tells you, about my contract progressions, I don't know anything, they're lying if they said anything more. These pictures, these videos, they're not going to calm it down or help anything, though, are they?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't really read much into that. I mean, Van Dijk has made quite clear, hasn't he, regularly, that he's kind of, he wants to stay at Liverpool. That's his main priority, and those talks are ongoing. So, I don't read much into that at all. I mean, if they were starting negotiations about him coming to PSG, I'm not sure they'd be as blatant as to do it in the Anfield tunnel where everyone can see them, really. So, I wouldn't be too concerned about that. And I think his priority is still to stay at Liverpool. And the fact is, Liverpool know they're not stupid. Like, the idea that they're going to let the best centre half in the world go to a rival in Europe, it'd just be absolutely insane. And I know people want to moan about the hypothetical aspect of it and get ahead of it and say that they were right or whatever, but I don't think this will happen. And I think you're just wasting time moaning about it if you're saying that he's definitely locked on and he's going to leave now. I just really don't expect it would happen. And I think, and if it does and they allow Salah and Van Dijk to go, I'll absolutely hammer them, because it's stupidity. But I just don't. I honestly do not understand this obsession with trying to say, "Oh, it's definitely happening. It's definitely happening." I'm pretty sure I had to read that 1,000 times when Salah signed his last contract. I just think it's ridiculous. And I also had to read last summer that Liverpool were going to get nowhere near the title, and they have absolutely no chance of winning anything. And they're going to win the Premier League at an absolute canter, and they're in a cup final as well. So, I don't understand this desire to kind of grasp the negativity and always, in an attempt to try and be proven right.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. Say, we all know we want them to stay. We'll see what develops with this one. And I suppose that the PSG one, we've talked about potential outgoings, different things recently. Was PSG almost an indicator for you, like at the absolute top level, that we are probably going to win the title? We've got a chance of a double. There's no two ways about it. But there are almost glaring deficiencies, as in we are short a striker. We clearly need a left back, possibly, as we said, defensive cover as well, like a midfielder. It has kind of shone a light of just where there's gap, shall we say, in the team or the squad, hasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. This is it. This is a really, really good squad, as evidenced by the fact they're on track for 90 points in the Premier League. And as I say, going to win it. It's an absolute cancer. But they want to be more than that. They want to not just be the best team in the Premier League. They want to win the Champions League again and want to be the best team in Europe. And it's been spelled out there, really, what you have to do to get to that elite level. I mean, as I say, the margins were quite fine. So, they could have won the penalty shootout. They could have gone through in normal time on the basis of the chances he created, but you want to make sure those margins go in the favour next time. And so I think it's quite clear that there are little bits of tweaking that you can do to this squad, and it doesn't need ripping up completely, does it? There's clearly a really, really good basis there for success, particularly if you get the contract sorted, which I would expect. But it's all about now not necessarily adding quantity, but adding real quality. So if you get one centre back of top class quality. Same with the left back, and then you do similar in midfield and one forward as well. I think you're looking at a squad that is much better, but it's all about identifying the right players, then being the right fit for what Arne Slot needs. But we know Liverpool generally are quite good at doing that, so I think a lot of reason for optimism really that they can kick on next season and be even better.
Yeah, we were starting to think about names already because it is strange almost with the season. I seen some tweet and I kind of get it saying that almost after the cup final, it feels like our season almost ends a little bit. And I know there's still a league title to be won, but almost the competitive element. Are you getting that sort of feeling as well, that almost it does feel like this week is going to be defined by Sunday as a amazing week, or it kind of peters out somewhat?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no question, is there? If you follow up going out the Champions League with losing a cup final to Newcastle, be real disappointment. I think that's fair enough because you can go out to PSG, that's absolutely fine. But I think losing to Newcastle in the cup final would be disappointing. They're not quite at Liverpool's level this season, and generally they don't have that muscle memory in cup finals either. So you really would think that Liverpool should be winning this one. But it's a strange one. I mean, you could have basically a double wrapped up by the end of this week, or know that you just winning the Premier League, by the way. It's a strange one really. But what I would say as well is that after this cup final, win or lose, I think everyone should really enjoy the running as well, because Liverpool are guaranteed to win the league here, and how often you get to say that with kind of 9 games remaining. So enjoy that, that aspect of it, and there'll be plenty more wins to come as well in the meantime. Enjoy the guards of honour that Liverpool can secure. But yeah, it's strange now with the Champions League on that Liverpool's, the things that they're competing for effectively end on Sunday, which is very strange.
Yeah, it does feel like things are, and then people are going to start to focus on the summer. Just
to come in, by the way, I'm absolutely, genuinely blown away by some of the negativity in the comments today on the feed. I mean, the stuff about the ownership, and I just, I totally get. I think there's been times where I think the ownership could have definitely done more, and I think most of my missteps where I would have genuine anger towards them are kind of around ticketing and the Super League and things like that. Some real terrible decisions, I would say, around that. But I mean, the idea that Liverpool are like run by the worst owners in the league. I mean, outside of Manchester City, is there a single other ownership group in this league that Liverpool fans would like to be run by? And I mean, and if you would like Man City's owners, by the way, it's not for me, but fair enough if you don't, interested about that sort of thing. But the winning the league at a canter with ease, having appointed a manager to succeed Jurgen Klopp, and everybody was saying it's going to fail, it's going to go wrong. And yet they've appointed a manager who's got them winning the Premier League for only the second time in 35 years. And people are absolutely devastated because alongside that, this isn't the best team in Europe as well. Despite having spent last season in the Europa League, they've come back to the Champions League, got knocked out by a team who, for me, are probably the eventual winners. I'm just amazed by the negativity. I just find it absolutely baffling. The only club out there who have had a better last sort of 7 or 8 years is Manchester City, and they're currently on 115 charges. They're currently, the state owned. These are the issues you've got to put together in this consideration. I keep seeing about the contracts. Well, yes, if it doesn't happen, if those contracts aren't signed, we will criticise and we will ask what's going on, how you plan to move forward from this. But you're moaning about something that hasn't happened, and the timing of it is irrelevant. If you get those contracts done, they get done, don't they? And like I say, I find it kind of I just think these people are never going to be happy, and I wonder if you are watching this season and watching your team win the league, which they have not done very often in my lifetime. And still just hate everything about it. What are you doing it for? What's the point of following football? You're not enjoying it, because even when it's good, you're not enjoying it because it could have been better. Yeah, it could have been. That's life, mate. That's life.
Yeah. As the famous saying goes, here we all are with all our problems at the top of the league and a potential double to make it on Sunday as well. And I suppose I do want to talk about Sunday because I'm excited for this. I bet you are, because you're heading to Wembley, aren't you, as well, with the press pack, the patch journo. So looking forward to covering a big final as well.
No, it's well, like I say in the comments, it's an absolute disaster. Another trip to Wembley. I'm absolutely sick of this. But yeah, very, very much looking forward to it. Always a privilege to get down to Wembley, and some, been some great days in recent history for Liverpool there as well. And they should be big favourites for this one as well. And again, keep going back to at the start of the season. I think I would have said multiple times to you that third place in a cup win or a decent cup run would have been a great season for Liverpool. And here they are with the Premier League title already wrapped up and the chance to add a domestic cup as well. It would be absolutely incredible for the manager to do that in his first season. So yeah, very, very much looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a good game because Newcastle are a good side as well. Their fans are excellent too. Yeah. So it's got all the ingredients, but obviously the most important thing from the Liverpool perspective is to go out there and win it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a result that matters solely on Sunday. Is it a strange way? Because people will look at the PSG game, a big game, what's happened. Is a final like this the best way just to get over that it should all be positive? The trip to Wembley, the chance to lift silverware. You can just eradicate last night in one swoop on Sunday, can't you?
Yeah, exactly. I think no one's going to be too disheartened. Well, I'm sure the owners will be too disheartened because they constantly are every day of their lives. But I think, I think there will be, if you can win that, and it'll feel like getting the Champions League exit out of your system, won't it? And, I think maybe a bit of reality will set in of kind of, okay, we can't be too heartbroken. Liverpool didn't win a treble this season as if that was the expected minimum going into it. To get this domestic cup for Arne Slot to get his first trophy on board, and already they're going to follow it up with the Premier League. That'd be pretty incredible, really. So it's a big opportunity, and I think the biggest disappointment if they weren't to win this one would be that there is a gap between them and Newcastle, and so it's they have to go out there and show it really, and a Newcastle win would be a shock. So they've got to get out there and play well and show that there is a dearth between these sides, and also that there's kind of not. As good as kind of PSG were, and that they ended that Champions League run, that Newcastle aren't quite at that level, and Liverpool are a kind of a step above it.
Yeah, absolutely. It does feel like there is a gap, and we can show that. Should be excited for this. Show that level on Sunday. I mean, a few comments which I think are fair to say that didn't want extra time to then go out because it could have a slight knock-on for Sunday. Hopefully there is the recovery time. Just in terms of a few positions, we're expecting Trent to come out. So it's going to be surely Jarell Quansah at right back on Sunday, isn't it?
Yeah, just no other options really to do that, is there? I thought Jarell did really well, to be fair. It's not his natural position, but I thought he did as well as you could hope for, really. And I think there's a little bit of an upside in that it's not going to be Anthony Gordon down his side. As good as Harvey Barnes is as a player, I think Gordon's just maybe that little step above, isn't he? So that's good news for him. And, he's had a good warm-up in terms of playing against PSG as well. So he should hopefully have a bit of rhythm. And, Liverpool are just going to have to cope without that ball progressor at right back that they're so used to, and find other ways to get the ball up the pitch. I think that's got to be the focus in training between now and then, really, is how they do that. But yeah, it's a big day for Jarell, and hopefully he can kind of stand up to it.
Yeah, fingers crossed on that. And midfield's an interesting one because we say some players went off. Gravenberch played the whole game. I thought he looked absolutely exhausted as that went on. Curtis Jones, we know his talent at keeping the ball. Maybe didn't have the best performance last night. Do you think it is going to be the standard Grav, Mack and Szoboszlai, or do you think Curtis Jones might get in there?
It's interesting. Maybe I just wonder whether Curtis has kind of played himself out of it, because he was really notably poor, wasn't he, when he came on? It's strange with Curtis. I think he's been overall very, very good this season, but a few kind of quite poor games sprinkled in there as well. So, it's a little bit of that inconsistency he just needs to get out of his system, really. But I'm fascinated to see what he does in terms of, does he, because his striker options are such a problem at the moment, does he go with that two false nines thing again and hope that kind of works? That's the real kind of interesting debate for me, really, in terms of how he goes about it, because it's very, very hard to pick between Núñez and Jota on form at the moment, because both are not really there, or they weren't there yesterday at least. So honestly, very, very hard to pick the side for this one. And I said similar about last time as well.
Yeah, it is tough. I mean, obviously, say Jota's probably played his way out with his recent performances. You'd look at Darwin Núñez and think, for Arne Slot, does he trust him? He'll probably deliver a 2 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10. There doesn't seem to be an in between at the moment. Is the forward line realistically for you the one where you're just looking and thinking it's near on impossible just now to think who will go for?
Yeah, and I don't think he's helped at all by the fact that Gakpo's just looked so unfit yesterday when he came on. I mean, the obvious thing to do if you weren't going with the 2 false 9 things is to Gakpo left, Diaz up the middle, and Mo Salah on the right. But again, that doesn't feel like an option because Gakpo is seemingly not there physically. I mean, whether he can remedy that between now and Sunday, we'll have to see. And maybe he does sneak into the starting lineup, but he didn't look likely on the basis of his performance yesterday. So it's so difficult, isn't it, to know what he's going to do, and don't have the kind of track record like we did with Jurgen, so many games looking at how he played and what he would do, and we kind of had a knowledge at a certain point of what he was going to do in any big game. Don't feel like that with Slot yet. Don't really have enough experience. So it's another massive selection for him, really.
Yeah, and people will naturally, I think, ask questions like, why isn't Chiesa getting on the pitch? Because Gakpo literally looked not even half fit, I think you could describe it as last night. So you wonder if there is a bit of time between now and the final. But there are some real tough decisions for Arne Slot to make. I suppose the only thing I want to finish on with this final, Liverpool are still favourites, aren't they? I know it's been a tough game, and literally you'll look at Newcastle and say they won the other night, but you'll also look at Newcastle and say, no Anthony Gordon, Lewis Hall's out as well, Sven Botman. So their entire left side has really sort of been pulled out there. Liverpool's experience, there is a lot to be optimistic and be excited about for Sunday, isn't there?
Yeah, this is it. And I think we have to remember primarily really that you know, Newcastle are a great side. They can absolutely win this game. We're not playing them down at all, but they're not PSG's level. And so therefore, we'll see a better Liverpool. I'm pretty certain. I thought Liverpool played well last night anyway. Let's not forget that as much as the negativity. You know, I think, you know, so if Liverpool play at that level again, I don't think Newcastle will be able to cope with it. And Liverpool dominated Newcastle very, very recently as well, didn't they? And beating them 2-0 at Anfield. So you've got all that match-winning experience, the trophy-winning experience that Newcastle don't have. There's a lot of reason to believe that Liverpool are strong favourites, and they are strong favourites to the bookies. I think the bookies make them about kind of 75% likely to win the game. So that gives you an idea, really, and that shows that there is a gap between these two teams. But of course, it's up to Liverpool to show it. And I know there's a little bit of concern about the extra time and what that's done for Liverpool as well. But you must remember, it is only an extra 30 minutes. Newcastle played on the Monday anyway. There's not a huge difference there. So that's kind of helped level things out. I think if this one were to go to extra time, that would be an interesting one and tricky for Liverpool because they're doing 2 extra times back to back. But also, you know, I just think that they can get the job done in 90 minutes anyway, because I think they are a better team than Newcastle. They have all that mentality and quality, really, and I just think they'll show that there's a difference between these two sides.
Yeah, fingers crossed for Sunday. We will see what happens. And people, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to have to comment on this as well. I can't believe we are top of the league. We're going to the final on Sunday, which I'm massively looking forward to. So excited about the negativity. We got beat by the best side we've seen at Anfield this season. And by the way, we gave them a hell of a game. It goes to penalties, which can go either way. Yes, in the summer, there's things we'd like to do. But being honest, just some of the comments I'm seeing as well about, no, you've not called out FSG. On this pod that I've done with David for over 2 years, in this season, there must be about a dozen times we've said on the contracts, if they're not done by the summer and these players go on a free, we're going to hammer them. So that, just to be clear, that's just an outright lie in the chat panel there, or you're not watching or you're not listening. And maybe, like David said, you're just going to hear what you want to hear somewhat. But to try and bring it around and do a full 360, he's right to say, David, let's finish on this note. We should be excited about Sunday. We should be looking forward to it. There's a real chance of a double. These Reds have been brilliant this season. It doesn't mean everything's perfect, but there's a lot to look forward to still, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I know, I mean, maybe some supporters who only started supporting Liverpool relatively recently think this is just how it kind of always is. But I mean, you know as differently as I do that, you know, for the last 30 odd years, this is as good as it gets. I mean, the idea that they're cruising into this Premier League title, they've got a Wembley final that we get to go to on Sunday. You know, these are the great days, really. This is what it was like in Liverpool's peak years that we both missed. So, you know, really should be kind of relishing that and enjoying it and really looking forward to it. I mean, the idea that they were going to do a cup double in a Premier League and cup double, hopefully, in Arne Slot's first season, I would never have dreamed it would have gone this well. So, obviously, let's hope that they can get over the line on Sunday at Wembley. But it's it's going to be a great day. Looking forward to getting down there, and then the basis as well. The other thing to kind of think is off the back of this season, even more to look forward to, because this is Slot's first season with no signings, basically.
No.
Might be about to get even better as well. So, you know, loads and loads to enjoy. Is there how many other clubs out there are having as much fun this season as Liverpool? I'd say not very many, and yet too many kind of steeped in misery about it. I'll never really understand that mentality, to be honest.
Yeah, just think, people, if you want to be miserable, there's a club down the East Lancs Road who was supposed to run out of money by Christmas, and now there's a guy putting up or threatening to put up a £1 billion tent by the looks of it. The circus. So keep that in mind. But there you go. So on Wednesday, the 12th of March, there's only a few days to the Carabao Cup final. If you need reminding, Liverpool are top of the league. Liverpool are heading to Wembley. There is plenty to look forward to. All it needs me to say as ever is for the chat, the analysis, the small rant, and batting away all the negativity. David, it is appreciated as ever.
Thank you for having me.
And ladies and gents, that was another Media Matters for Anfield Index.